I finally got the Sony PlayStation 5 DualSense Edge wireless controller in-house just today. I'm really excited to crack into this thing and give you my first impressions and walk through what's included in the packaging. I want to showcase like how much larger this box is than the actual DualSense box that this came in. As you can see, it's a little bit bigger from here, from there, but it's a lot thicker because of all of the stuff that you get that's included in the box. Totally to be expected because you get a lot more within this package for the $200 price tag that this thing has been introduced with. So taking a quick look around the box, on the left side of it, you see it's compatible with the PlayStation 5 console and a front-facing picture of the controller. Front of it is to be expected, and then on this side it shows everything that's within the package contents. On the back, it gives you a visual representation of what's in there, everything except for the case. And then they have a QC patch here. So with that, let's get into this. Typical Sony fashion, there's this like outer casing type of flimsy material just for marketing purposes, and then you get to the actual box itself, and then with that you flip it open. It's quite a nice unboxing experience, and we'll put the main contents of the package off to the side for a bit as we dig deeper into the box, because you're going to want to take a closer look at the instruction manual for this controller. I know that's not something most of us do, but this will help you navigate the controller's feature set and also set it up correctly. The controller comes in a carrying case or a travel case. It's kind of a harder plastic, as you can see, and it's got two zipper buttons and kind of a lanyard loop there as well. On the back side, you can see the inputs on that. I expect that to get worn down if you travel with your controller quite a bit. And there's also this opening patch, the opening area that is secured by Velcro on each side, and that'll allow you to charge the controller while it's in its case, but you have to plug into it that way. So that is it's a really nice, really nice case, if I do say so myself. Unzipping, getting into the controller. Before we look at the controller, let's get into all the accessories that are included. There is a charging cable up here that is held in place by some packaging material. Let's throw that off to the side. There's a little mesh net here that allows you to wrap the wire and stow it away and carry it that way. This is a 6-foot, I believe, braided cable that is USB type A to type C. Taking the controller out of the carrying case, there's a little bit of packaging material on top of it. I don't want to look at this quite yet, so let's put this off to the side and look closer at what's included in the carrying case. You get a couple of variations of back inputs because there's two on the back of this controller. You get a cable retention lock. This allows you to put the USB type C end within this little case here. So let's open this. And the instructions show you to place it like that. You clip it onto the end of the cable there, and then with that you can put this into the controller and lock it in place, and it will be held in place. I think this is for more competitive environments, so you don't accidentally pull the cable out. Taking a closer look at this cable retention lock, you engage it and these two little loops pop out and they secure themselves within the port here on the DualSense Edge, and it holds the cable in place. So that's a quick tour of that. Moving right along, you get a couple sets of different thumbsticks, and these come in different heights. You get two of this longer one that is dome in shape, and you get two of the shorter one that is also dome in shape. I don't know why they don't give you longer thumbsticks that are of the same build quality or the same shape as the standard. It's a little weird to me. I wish they would include those instead, because I really have grown to love the shape of this thumbstick. One of the feature sets that the DualSense Edge offers is back inputs, and they give you two different types. It's a lever type, and these are really nice metal construction. I am absolutely pleased with the build quality of these. They feel like they're metal, and I think they are, because they're really cold because they've been in the package sitting on my porch for a while, and they are really strong. They're really rigid. There's no bend or flex within these. You can hear they are definitely metal. And then they give you a button type, And these are also a different type of input that you can swap out on the back of the controller, and I think they're held in place by magnets. One thing that I really want to praise Sony on is the construction of this case. This is a really nice like plastic, and it will hold everything in place without it bouncing around while you're traveling, which is an important aspect of having a substantial or a usable travel case. If you have these in place, you can still put it in the travel case without taking them off. So it's not required that you take them off. But for me, I would, if I was traveling, you know, long distances or whatever, I would definitely remove this and put it in its case spot where it belongs, just to prevent it from any kind of unnecessary damage or unnecessary wear and tear. So that's enough of the case. Let's look at this controller. The first noticeable thing about this controller is the share pad. It's much more like substantial. It's much more pronounced. There is some indents of, you know, triangle, cross, circle, and square on there. It's just very PlayStation-esque, and it feels really good. As far as like clickability, if that's even a word. Taking a closer look at the share pad, you can see the embossed elements of the Sony logos here with the square, triangle, circle, and cross. It adds an element of tactile feedback, I guess. Not tactile feedback, more of a nicer surface. It's not adding any non-slip or anything like that, but it is preventing against any kind of fingerprints that would show up if you don't like fingerprints too much. So as you move along the top of it, you see there's this sharp drop off towards the top of the controller. That's different. It adds more of a, you know, a stealthy look to the controller than what you would experience on OEM. Share and option buttons are pretty standard as what you would experience on the OEM controller that we're all know and love. As far as the mushiness of the directional pad, feels like there's a standard membrane under there. I would have liked to have seen them put some sort of clicky response button under there, because I think that would separate this controller even further from any competition out there. For example, like the aim controllers that I have had and been using, this has a clicky response trigger underneath. Battle Beaver offers in their builder. You can separate your directional pad and add clicky buttons there. So just keep that in mind, that this is just the standard membrane under the directional as well as the buttons. They feel very standard, very OEM-esque. While we're on the front of the controller, let's take a look at what I think is going to revolutionize the way controller manufacturers are going to make future revisions or, you know, make pro controllers. It's the removable thumbstick modules. So to remove them, there's this glossy little faceplate. You flip the controller over and you hit release, and I think it will drop right off. You gotta have some level of fingernails, and I do not. So I think I'm gonna have to get something that's more, there we go. Right here, there's a little release button. You just push that over. It's really hard to get to if you don't have fingernails. I don't have them, so you gotta dig in a little bit and pull it off. That pops this little faceplate off, and you can put that off to the side. And then there's these levers on the side of the controller that are look very familiar from the back thumb paddles. So you lift that up, and as you lift that up, this little module disengages from its connection point within the controller, and then now you have a separate freaking thumb module. This is freaking amazing. Not only do you have the thumb module built into one encapsulated little thing that you can easily replace, the function buttons also function within that. So again, with the release button, you gotta reach in and kind of gotta, I don't have fingernails, but as you pull it, it releases, this pulls out. Then we can take a closer look at the module setup. These little levers, you pull them up, watch it disengage as I pull it out. It pulls the thumbstick out. I'll do the other side, and I'll put it down so you can see it disengage. And it disengages, and you pull it out. So towards the top of the controller here, you can see those module slits that marry with the module stick, the thumbstick modules. So that clicks in place and makes them unidirectional, so they can go in either one. So that's cool. Let's take a closer look at this thumbstick module. See the FN button. It's not labeled in any way, shape, or form, so it can be on either side of the controller. And then there's the connection as well as the QR code. It's a cool design. So I take these back, put them in, you can put them in place, and they sit as far as they can, but they don't make a connection until you click it down and watch it engage. Engages and engages. And then from there, so you take the cover, the glossy one that already has a bunch of fingerprints on it, and my hands are pretty clean. You take these little hooks and then you take and slide it in at an angle. And click down and it's secure. That's it, all done. I can't wait for like other manufacturers to make something like this, because these exist for the OEM controller, and you can swap out the trim on your controller and kind of customize it a little further. So I'm really excited about the potential for these to be made, and I'm going to definitely swap mine out for a matte black or something like that. Taking a look at the top of the module without it being removed, you can see that there's these little cutouts or little like ledges, clips I guess, that are on the thumbstick tops. And you take these and you line these little grooves up with the grooves on the thumbstick module. And then at that point, you would just snap it in. And it snaps in place really nicely. Moving on to the next part of this video, I want to kind of measure how much tension is in within these new thumbstick modules versus the OEM. Before I do that though, I'm going to swap back to the standard thumbsticks so I can get as close as comparison as possible. So click that in place, find the other one, and click that in place. So instead of giving you an arbitrary, like I'm telling you through video, like this feels more, this has more tension than or not, I'm going to use a trigger pull gauge, and we're gonna measure the differences between the two. So hopefully this adds a little bit more of a scientific element to comparing these two controllers. So we've set the gauge to ounces, and we're gonna go ahead and start with the left thumbstick. 2.6 ounces, and the right thumbstick, 2.5 ounces. So, you know, about 2.5 ounces of pull to engage these. And that's the tension that's on the OEM controller. Let's go ahead and do the DualSense Edge, starting with the left. 2.6 ounces. Onto the right. 2.4 ounces. So they're roughly the same. The cool thing about this though is that I think, you know, like Battle Beaver and stuff like that, they've made like for the Astro C40 tighter modules, because those were replaceable. I think there's opportunity for them to do the same here, or other manufacturers to do the same, where you can buy a thumbstick module that has a higher tension so you can swap it out. There's a lot of room for innovation with the way that this thing is designed, and there's a lot of room for people to make accessories for the DualSense Edge. We're gonna talk a little bit more about these function buttons here. They are not like actionable buttons. You can't, you know, remap them or anything and have additional inputs, which would be kind of a unique or an interesting concept if you had a button down there that was right below. But for right now, the way that Sony has intended use of these is that one is for like game chat and volume. You can quickly adjust your volume in the game and chat split and make those adjustments really quickly. The other is for setting up different profiles and remapping and all that type of stuff. So that's a cool concept, especially for those of you that do not use like a Sony certified headset like that of the H7s. If you have this headset, it already has a game and chat rocker to make those adjustments, and the volume is a system made. So it's a quick way for you to make adjustments to these without taking your hands off the controller and making those adjustments. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that if you have like a SteelSeries headset or something like that, and you don't have the system control on your headset, this is a good addition. The one really big letdown, in my opinion, on this DualSense Edge that is keeping this from probably being my main controller is that it does not have 4 back inputs. That's such a bummer, especially considering the price of this controller. I really wish that they would have taken notes from, like, I don't know, Battle Beaver with their 4 inputs here as buttons, or say a Scuff with their 4 back paddle system, which is easily one of the best. Or for example, like AIM controllers with their nice implementation of the 4 back paddles, or even something like the Hex controller setup with this back paddle system. or even say, you know, hyper gaming with their really nice button implementations. So in my opinion, that was a really big letdown, and it's probably going to keep a lot of people actively seeking other options out there that want 4 inputs. I swear they missed the boat on this one. But if you move this up just a little bit and put another one here that's kind of the same and kind of fall in line with, say, like an aim controller's implementation, that's such a missed opportunity from Sony, and it's a really big letdown. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and move on and talk about these back buttons, because they're good, and if you've never had a Pro controller, 2 inputs is more than enough to start with. I really like the metal paddles, and just from having this controller in my hand for the short amount of time that I have, these fit and are actuated really nicely. Like, they fit perfect, and they're not super loud or clicky. So if you stream or something like that and you're concerned about noise, not gonna get it from this controller. That's really nice. So these back paddles are labeled. You can see RB and LB, and they correspond with the inputs on the controller, RB, LB. So if we take, let's say, LB, put it into LB, it fits within it where it's supposed to along the grip of the controller. But if I take LB out and put it into RB, it fits and it actuates. I don't know if that's supposed to be. I'll probably have to look into the instruction manual, but look at that. That's an interesting way to actuate. That puts the inputs down more towards my ring finger. See, all the more reason why I think there's opportunity to have 4 inputs on this controller, because if I had the ones on the side of the grip here, I could actuate those, and then I had these 4 down here, or I could actuate all 4 of those inputs with my middle finger. These metal back button attachments have a convex and a concave surface to them, and they're not labeled. There's a little tiny writing on it, but they don't coincide with anything on the controller. You just have to make sure that you're putting them in place with the convex area up, and then these become actuation buttons. This is a way for you to keep the inputs out of the way if you're playing a game, or if you find yourself accidentally actuating these levers and you want to get away from that. These give you the capability to kind of have your hands in and playing without ever having to worry about clicking these back inputs without, you know, really, like, I'm making a decision to click these back buttons. They don't make a whole lot of noise when you actuate them, so that's good for streamers out there, but just know that these exist. The next thing that sets this thing apart in all the world of DualSense controllers is the adaptive trigger system and the ability to adjust how much input is required to actuate that input. So that trigger sits in place. That's full actuation, so you're gonna be able to get into Astro's playroom and run around, feel the sand and click it and all that type of stuff and have fun with that. But when it's time to get sweaty and get into a Call of Duty lobby, you can get that actuation to go much quicker. Another thing, within the settings, you can make this so it's a very light hair trigger and assign it to a profile, so Modern Warfare 2 or Warzone or whatever, and set it to where that's the actuation of the whole thing. But there is quite a bit of travel there. There is by no means a clickiness to it or anything like that. There isn't like instant feedback. So for example, like one of the better clicky trigger systems that are available out there is the Scuff. That's instant actuation. And that's on the tightest setting on the DualSense Edge. There's no sound, so there's still that, you know, that mushiness to it, and it's still going to take a little bit more time to actuate that button versus somebody playing with a Scuff. Or I would say that the Battle Beaver has the best clicky triggers available on market right now. That's instant actuation. They're going to gun you right there real quick, and you got to move a little bit. I say the bumpers are pretty much OEM. They're mushy there. Same with these, because this doesn't have like a digital click button, but my Scuff does, and you can see that this is clicking in its place. Nothing. There's a membrane under that. And bringing in the OEM controller so we can get a quick comparison between the two, you can see that they're both the same adaptive trigger systems. But say I want a little bit less travel. I can't do anything with the OEM controller, but I can go to the second setting, drop it down, and there is a lot less travel. And if I want even more less travel, or less travel, the least amount of travel, This design part is carried forward towards the trigger system, but in this case it is not embossed. It's more of a raised feature, so it adds an element of grippiness to it. So that's a nice touch, and that goes for L2 as well here. So your fingers are less likely to slip off. And I've never had slippage problems with the trigger systems on any of the controllers that I've used. Taking a look at the bumpers, however, these look like they're standard OEM buttons. Looks like they just took them out of the bucket that they're using to make the DualSense controller and threw them on this. I would have liked to have seen this same material carry over or be married over to the L1 and R1 buttons, but it's not, and it is what it is. This is a unique implementation of a system that I think is required of Pro controllers as we move forward. I can't even imagine what like Battle Beaver and all the custom controller makers out there like AIM and all that stuff are gonna do with this type of design or system and how they're going to customize it. I can only imagine what Battle Beaver is going to do with something like this. They're going to get a DualSense Edge controller and then give you all the customization that you want. In addition to all those companies having the availability to explore thumbstick module tension, modifiers, and all kinds of cool stuff. I will say that this thing feels absolutely great in the hand. It feels a little bit heavier than an OEM. So with the metal back paddles on and ready to go, let's go ahead and see how much the DualSense Edge weighs. 11.9 ounces and the OEM controller 9.9 ounces. So it is a little bit heavier because the quality of the controller is much, much higher. I really love this inner part of the grip because it's more of a rubbery plastic than what you're gonna get on the OEM, which is just a basic plastic. You can see my kids have scratched that there. But this is just a basic plastic, and this is more of a rubber grip. And I think this feels like one of the best controllers, or one of the better controllers that I've used. And I really like the way this feels. One final thing I want to bring into the picture for the physical build of this controller is its compatibility with the wireless charger that you can buy from Sony right now. This thing fits right in place and will charge your device no problem, even with the back button paddles. Now to close this video out, I want to say that I am thoroughly impressed by the DualSense Edge controller, and I'm really excited to get putting it through its paces and testing it. If you're interested in a full review of this, you give me a couple of months and I'm going to put it together, but I really want to use this controller before I give any thoughts on that. I'm really excited to take advantage of the software part of this controller, and I think that's where you get your money's worth because of its tight integration with the Sony PlayStation 5. I think this controller and it coming to market at the time that it's coming to market is a good thing for gaming as a whole. This whole platform is going to spawn a lot of innovation as far as accessories for controllers of this type. And I'm excited to see how that grows. If you're interested in pricing and availability, I'll leave it linked in the description. Full disclosure, that may or may not be my affiliate link. Full disclosure, links in the description are my affiliate link, and I make a little bit of kickback based off your purchases without it costing you anything in addition. And that's just a way for you to support content creation on the channel, and it helps me continue to make content like this for you. Well, that about does it for me in this one. If you like this video, please feel free to give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, you know what to do. Thank you for taking the time to watch. I'm Tomas, and I'll catch you in the next one.